What's up, everybody? Welcome to the N.E.R.D. Never Ending Ridiculous Discussions Film and TV Podcast, your bi weekly podcast for the latest news, reviews, and impressions on the latest film and TV in streaming services and sometimes theaters. I'll be your host this week, once again, Dominic Spizzeri, with my co host, Kayla Smith. How you doing today, Kayla?
We're doing good. I'm on vacation this week, so it'll be a fun episode for me.
Yeah, you're doing this from Florida. You brought all your stuff so you can record an episode of this podcast. You're a real trooper.
Thank you. I love talking about this stuff, so it's all good for me.
Well, we have a pretty stacked show for this week. We've watched a lot of stuff this week, so we're going to be going through quite a bit. But just to get the general game plan down, last episode, we did have a breakdown of Loki episode 3. For this week, we have episodes 4 and 5 that have been released. Kayla and I kind of decided we're going to save our in-depth reviews of not just 4 or 5, but episode 6 and the rest of the season for the next episode. And we're also going to try to be able to watch Black Widow and have it be reviewed for that episode as well. So this episode is going to be really light on the Disney Marvel stuff. There's probably not going to be virtually any. So if you looking for that review, wait till next episode. But if we were to give a one quick sense review, Kayla, how you liking episodes 4 and 5 so far?
I was a little bit on the fence after episode 3, but I have got to say that Marvel did it. I am really looking forward to the finale, and I am very hopeful that this will not be the last that we see of Loki.
I absolutely agree. I cannot wait to see who's in that castle. But why don't we dive into the stuff that we have been watching? And the big show that both you and I actually managed to watch, and I watched in almost an entire day in one solid sitting, was Netflix's Sweet Tooth. For those of you who maybe aren't familiar with this show, it's based on a comic book series, as a lot of TV shows are, where it's almost like a mix of Mad Max meets Bambi is how the original author of the comic book actually described it, where there's a lot of children who are born being like hybrids with animal parts on them. The main character, whose name is Sweet Tooth, is part deer. He has antlers that he grows throughout the beginning of the first episode, which kind of shows like the first 9 years of his life. And then the rest of humanity is like wiped out in a virus. So it's like a post-apocalyptic show with hybrid children who people are like hunting down. And it's kind of a weird premise. But Kayla, why don't you tell me, what is your impressions of this show? What made you like it so much?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. I went in not expecting anything from it. It was something I was vaguely interested in because Robert Downey Jr. was attached to it, and he's done a lot of really great stuff in the recent years. But it was something I was really in trepidation about because some of the Netflix shows can be really hit or miss. They're either great or they're just kind of disappointing. And this just hit every mark, every step of the way. Gus is a great character. Gus is also named Sweet Tooth by Jeopard, who he affectionately calls Big Man. And one of the best things is that it kept surprising me every step of the way. It's following so many different people at so many different points throughout the United States. And you're still very clear on what's happening. You're still thinking, I want to go back to this place, but I'm really engaged in this story too, which is not an easy feat to accomplish.
No, not at all. And I like that you brought up the characters. I know you're talking about Gus, which is the big man, who is arguably my favorite character. One factor that I really liked about it is that a lot of the cast are kids. It's not just the main character that you're following throughout. There's also another supporting character who's a teenage girl. Let me see if I can get her exact name. She plays, I believe her character's name is Amy, if I recall correctly. And she is a recurring character that is also really good. And all the children actors in the show are very well done. which is not something I don't know about you, but it's not something I always say very positively about a lot of shows that follow kids. But the acting is excellently done, and the story took some twists and turns. Could you agree?
Oh, yeah, 100%. And before I go into that, I just want to throw in a quick clarification. Jeopard is Big Man, Gus is Sweet Tooth. Amy is actually the preservationist who is taking care of the children, and Bear is the other child who had been running this whole little forest of people. And I 100% agree with you. Children, again, hit or miss. They're either great or they are really, really frustrating. And they worked so well with these actors. They hit every single note, comedically, emotionally, dramatically. You're just invested right from the get-go. And the other thing I was a little concerned about was this idea of otherness that the show explores. They hit that a lot in the trailers where, Gus has horns and antlers, and some of these kids are pigs, and they're going to be discriminated against. But it still felt very fresh and very poignant, especially when they're doing a show about a pandemic in the midst of a pandemic. It didn't feel exhausting for me, which was amazing.
Oh, yeah, and just to comment on the pandemic, and thank you for correcting all the names I just got wrong. I definitely watched this show more closer to the release of the last episode than more of the recent, like some other shows. But I remember that first episode, and I remember when I was recommending you watch it, I even told you, like, hey, trigger warning, because that first episode is really intense. And the show tends to be very, at least I felt like there were moments where it felt very, like, kind of Disney. It had that kind of Disney family element, especially when the children are involved. There's not really a lot of swearing. And then there are certain side plots that they follow, or whenever the children kind of leave the screen, this show is not afraid to get dark. It's not afraid to push boundaries a little bit, and it's juggling kind of two themes at once. And I actually thought it did really well when you're going to these children characters who are very kind, lighthearted, saying playful things, and then we're going to go to these adults who are murdering people, and it blends actually really well.
Yeah, I think it's incredible that this is a show that does not care about your feelings. Let me be clear. It was very reminiscent of Game of Thrones to me in that sense, where you follow Ned Stark for so long and then they just whack him. And you're going, that wasn't supposed to happen. You weren't supposed to do that to me. And it really doesn't. I mean, you get the Sings, who are doctors on the show, and one's a doctor and his wife, and every part of their story is incredibly dark. You have a man who doesn't want to be a doctor because he realizes he cannot save everybody and it's killing him, and he has to go back and do this and make devastating, horrible, disgusting choices because he needs to save his wife, because she is surviving this because of the medicine that his family member was able to create at an extremely high cost. And then you flip back to Gus, who is wearing a little helmet, and he's pretending to be a dear boy because he can't really be a dear boy, but he's going to laugh and giggle, and Jeopard is going to roll his eyes, and it's going to be so cute, and your heart's going to explode, and you're left feeling like whiplash.
Oh, extremely. And not to mention, little shout out to is it a beaver? The little beaver character, who's just absolutely adorable.
Oh, he melted my heart. I don't think CGI is quite there yet, so he looked a little off, but my God, was he cute. He was so cute, so adorable.
That I agree. And I would think, I think it's probably safe to say that if we had a pick of the week, that if there was one show we talk about today that our listeners should definitely watch, would you say it's Sweet Tooth?
Absolutely. Go. Watch it. Binge it. The only point that Dominic and I entirely disagreed on was the season finale, which I would love to hear about in, comments or whatever, because I found that was the only part of the show that was expected for me. But you didn't feel that way, Dominic.
No, what in the moment, see, like I know we had a conversation about this later. When you told me your point, I went, "Oh yeah, Kayla's kind of right." You know, I should have seen that coming. Um, but ultimately, no. I don't really want to get into too in depth in spoilers. I definitely want to leave this because it is kind of brand new. I definitely want to make sure our listeners kind of check it out before we really get into it. Um, but the last few minutes, I think, really are a emotional roller coaster in both the main plot and the B plot. And it really, this is a show that ended, and I was saying, wow, I want a season two immediately.
Absolutely. And kind of to your point, I really want people to watch this. I would really love to get other people's thoughts on this now that it's been out for a little while. But even though the ending felt expected, they still managed to make it so good. They left it at a spot where you just want more. And what makes it so frustrating is it's been out for so long. It's this huge success. And Netflix hasn't confirmed a season 2 yet.
Yeah, that makes me fearful. I really hope a lot of people jump on this show, but I mean, Netflix usually does two or three seasons before they inevitably can things. But they have been canceling shows after season one. I know they did Jupiter's Legacy, or is it Jupiter Ascending?
It
I always
was
get those
it
two
was
mixed up.
Yeah, it was Jupiter's Legacy, and my understanding is they did those actors so dirty. They had signed their contract, and they just released everybody, and then dropped that they're just gonna stop that show and do a show about the villains instead. And I was like, wow, that was just shocking because that was on the top 10 list for a while.
Yeah, it was, and I know I watched that show, and I know it came out at kind of a bad time. Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier was at that time finishing up on Disney Plus. Invincible was on Amazon Prime. So two very very good uh, comic book style superhero shows, and then you have Jupiter's Legacy, which let's be honest, I don't think there's any argument that can be made that Jupiter's Legacy did anything better than Falcon and the Winter Soldier or Invincible. I would definitely say it's the number three show, but it was still very good. I watched it and felt a little superheroed out at that point, but I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I'm surprised that they cancel it, and to bring it back on point to Sweet Tooth, it does make me a little fearful because this is kind of it is a little different. It's a show based on a comic book that doesn't have superheroes. This is a good different show that balances children and adults really well without being like overly violent or a little too family friendly. So, in my opinion, it's a perfect Netflix show, and I really do hope that it finds an audience and we can get a season two.
Absolutely. I think, kind of to your point, it's really hard to make a splash in the bucket of the superhero genre right now. And I think that was kind of Jupiter's Legacy's issue, is that it was more of a drop than a splash. But Sweet Tooth does so much original and exciting stuff that it feels like it should get a season 2. And I'm just crossing my fingers.
Well, we'll find out someday. But speaking of season two, I am going to steal the floor as we move on into the next shows we've watched. But staying on Netflix, I watched both seasons one and season two of Black Summer, which is another TV show based on a comic book but with no superheroes. It's actually a zombie post-apocalyptic kind of series. And Kayla, are you into like kind of zombie post-apocalyptic stories at all?
I really wish that I could say yes, but I'm not, which is, I hate to go back to Sweet Tooth, but that's part of why I was so surprised, because I'm not usually into the post-apocalyptic thing, but you are really into Black Summer, and you've almost got me wanting to watch it now.
Exactly. I know I already told you the plot, but or the premise, but I'm gonna tell you it again, and I'm gonna try to sell you on it. So, this show, pretty much never answers the questions of why there are zombies in the world. It never gives an explanation for why people turn into zombies. It never says there's a virus. It never says if it's like a organization or anything like that. It's not like Resident Evil. There's no umbrella. There's nothing like that. So the thing that makes kind of this show a little bit different, because I know I'm sure with people listening who've maybe never checked out Black Summer, a lot of people are saying, oh, this is just another zombie post-apocalyptic show. But I promise this one is different, mostly based on two factors. Number one factor being is that people do not become zombies just by being infected. Any character who dies if they don't get shot in the head becomes a zombie. And then the other factor is kind of what I already mentioned, which is the show never focuses on why. This show is just about the setting and following a certain group of characters and their survival throughout. And this show, if we talk about Sweet Tooth not caring about your emotions and really pushing the boundary, Black Summer is like the grandfather that had even less care about your emotions. This is a show that, and not to spoil anything, but it followed the character all through season 1, and season 2 starts and they kill them off in the first 5 minutes like they're nothing. Like they just don't matter. And this was a character that you followed extensively throughout season 1. So this is definitely a show that it is all about the premise and the plot. And just knowing, I think the big factor for me is just knowing that there's no escape. You can't, board yourself in a room and wait for the sickness to die out because zombies eventually will fall. Like if you die, you will become a zombie, period. Like you are also part of the problem. Everyone is a problem. And it's just such a cool premise because you never feel safe. And I'm a big fan of shows that like to play with your emotions, especially anxiety. And this is a show that the entire concept, once I realized that there's no safety for these people, it's just pure anxiety the entire time. And let me tell you, I had such a good time.
That actually sounds great. Now, for coming from somebody who doesn't watch a lot of, zombie post-apocalyptic stuff, I've seen Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead is great. It is hilarious. There's some anxiety. There's not a lot of it. And then you have one of the longest running zombie shows, The Walking Dead, which my boyfriend actually watched almost obsessively until some of the recent seasons, and he got kind of tired of it. So kind of on that spectrum, where does that fall and how does it fit into the genre as a whole?
I would say it fits in pretty strongly. I don't personally hunt down a lot of zombie films. Like I've seen 28 Days Later, I've seen Resident Evil movies, and I've seen Shaun of the Dead, and of course the classics that it spoofs of. And I guess if you were to ask me like what zombie or post-apocalyptic movie in general or TV series would I rewatch, I would rewatch Black Summer. I don't know how many of those movies or TV series I would rewatch because a lot of them are debatable. So I feel like where does it fall? At least for me, I think pretty highly, and I really don't. I don't feel like I say that often about a lot of these newer series. A lot of them are like, oh, they're very good, but this is almost like the Thor Ragnarok of zombie series, in my opinion. Like maybe someone will argue it's not number one, and you might have merit because, again, there's no character development in this show. It doesn't have that. It's all about the setting. But I think for what it's based off of, I think it does the premise right. And by not focusing on character growth or anything like that and just situations, it's just, again, the entire time, it doesn't rest for a moment. There's no moment of peace. You're just waiting for betrayals. You're waiting for a zombie to show up, and it toys with you. Like, there are moments where you don't think anything can happen, and something will. And it's, of course, like the worst thing that could possibly happen.
Absolutely. It sounds like something that is probably worth checking out if you are into that. I will probably have to recommend that to my boyfriend and see if that's something that he's interested in, because like I said, it's something you would normally watch, but I do really enjoy those creeping horrors and the kind of dramas that really just don't care about your feelings. They just care about the story they're trying to tell.
But enough about shows not caring about our emotions. Kayla, you watched I think you could describe it as a half stand-up, half romantic comedy that is the complete opposite about not caring about your emotions. A show that really takes a different kind of, or a movie that really takes a kind of a different perspective on relationships and just rom-coms in general. It's called Good on Paper. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so completely switching the narrative back to shows that absolutely care about your feelings. I checked out Good on Paper. I'm not the biggest fan of Elisa Scherzinger, who helped write and direct and star in this movie. I just kind of watched it because I was really looking for something kind of light, actually, after Sweet Tooth, funny enough. And I was just really surprised because it starts exactly like any other rom-com starts. Stand-up comedian meets guy on an airplane, and he is just your average Joe. He's not too attractive. He's not super ugly. He doesn't, have like a crazy six-pack. He's not completely overweight. He's just a nice-ish looking guy. And you find out throughout the course of this movie that he's checking all of the boxes. He went to Harvard. His mom has cancer and he's living with her and he's taking care of her. He's doing all the things that every girl is trained to look for and accept and kind of fall into that trap. And one of my favorite things about it is that she, throughout the first half of the movie, kind of says, he's my friend. I just like him because he's really fun to hang out with. And she's still going on dates with other guys. And even when he initially tries to say, hey, I'm in love with you, she goes, I just don't feel that way. And my favorite part about this is the fact that you see her get kind of cornered into this relationship that she wasn't looking for because he's a great guy, and why doesn't she just date him? That being said, you find out that he's a little bit crazy and he's lying about everything. I don't want to give away too much of the story, but you really see, in a way that you don't see in a lot of rom-coms, this female actress rise up to this challenge that she's meeting. And when everything blows up, this is my favorite part, it doesn't go the way that you think it's going to go. It does not fit into the trope. Boy meets girl, they fall in love, they break up, and then they're supposed to get back together. And seeing a female actress on screen stand her ground to the toxic, just psychological manipulation and say, no, I don't deserve this, was just incredibly empowering for me as a person, as somebody who has experienced this a lot. I don't want to talk too much about this, but I experienced this in high school. I experienced this in college where guys would like me and I would be pressured into trying to date them. And it was just because I was told, well, they're nice, they're good. And being able to find that strength within myself to kind of say, no, they're not as nice as they seem. I don't care what you think. I need to do what I need to do for me. And seeing somebody do that on screen was just so incredibly empowering.
Just you describing this made me feel a little insecure. I'm like, wait, I'm not doing all those kind of things, Like, am I not good enough for my partner? Is she going to leave me for another guy, like a typical rom-com? But I did appreciate that you were able to solidify that, no, that's a good thing that she didn't go back to this person. It's also being a half comedy. How does that work in with this actress's stand-up? Is this like a Jerry or like a Seinfeld kind of thing?
Yeah, so it kind of ends up playing a little bit as a Seinfeld. She's doing a stand-up act throughout the entirety of the movie, and she's literally telling people about this crazy guy that she got into a relationship with. And honestly, my favorite part about all of this is that it gets a little crazy. It gets a little bit out of control, and you feel, this is a little insane. But Elisa Scherzinger experienced this in her real life, and she has come out as this movie has been promoted, and she goes, not everything on the screen happened to me, but about 2/3 of it did. And She goes, this ending is for people who have ever been unjustifiably and brutally screwed over in a way that you didn't deserve. It was cathartic to write it, but the ending was a little bit of vindication on paper. I'm shedding light on this because it's a crazy story that I made into something funny, but it is actually super pervasive in our culture and nobody talks about it because it's so embarrassing. I'm here to say you don't have to be embarrassed. It just, that's her real life up there. It blows my mind. As far as a rom-com, it kind of defies the genre a little bit. It works really well. It is smart. It is funny. It's just a good movie, and it makes you feel good, even though it doesn't end the way it's supposed to end.
And I feel like that movie just perfectly sums up this episode. It's us watching shows that subvert your emotions. This is the third one in a row that I feel like, well, exception of you kind of calling Sweet Tooth's ending. This is like the third one in a row where it's like we're watching shows that just toy with us, that go in multiple directions, whether it's anxiety, whether it's just general, I guess, curiosity, like with Sweet Tooth, or even in this one where we're talking about relationships, something that's even more obviously relatable for everybody. And I think that's just an absolutely amazing style show. And I personally haven't watched this yet. I know you've told me about it a few times now. My girlfriend did watch it, and I actually asked her if she wanted to watch it, but she had already watched it without me, and she really liked it as well. So what is streaming service is this show on again?
It's another Netflix guy. I guess we're talking about Netflix today. And again, that's why I also didn't necessarily have the highest expectations for it, because Netflix has been really good at letting us down recently. But this was it was a nice surprise, and it was a nice kind of palate cleanser.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's another show for you guys who have Netflix and you guys want to watch some really good content, whether it's something a little scary, something just kind of down the middle, or something really good-hearted and some good vibes. You can check out Black Summer, Sweet Tooth, and Good on Paper. But I think the rest of the stuff that I see on our docket, we're gonna start getting to some kind of negative things. But staying on Netflix, I did check out the first of 3 movies in the Fear Street series, which is Fear Street 1996. The next one's going to be 1984. Then after that is 1666. And they're going to be released back to back to back, with the second one, I believe, coming out on July 9th. And then the part 3 is coming out on July 16th. I did check out the first part. As of right now, I have not watched the second part yet. It's kind of a teen horror kind of series. It almost felt like it belonged on like an ABC Family kind of thing. It definitely kind of gave that vibe of a very similar show that ended, I believe, last year, which was Sabrina, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, I believe is what the Netflix title is. Very, very similar to that. I know you weren't able to watch that, Kayla, right? This is more me.
It was, and I remember telling you when you had told me that this was coming out, I wasn't aware, and when you told me it was going to be like this 3-part horror trilogy, kind of a callback to classic horror, and I believe it was Ryan Murphy's involved in it, isn't he?
I do not know off the top of my head.
Okay, so maybe Ryan Murphy's involved in it, but I was really looking forward to it, and then you finished the first movie, so why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for starters, this is probably not a movie for me, because it is a teen horror movie. It does have that Sabrina vibes to it. It has that Twilight vibes. It is not really scary. It's about a bunch of high schoolers, so of course it has the high school drama, and of course it's your typical teenagers making kind of dumb decisions and doing things that you're just screaming at the TV. Why would you do that? But I'm gonna kind of break down like the horror monster first, and then I'll kind of break down to actually the big issue that I have with the show. But the monster they're kind of fighting is a witch curse, essentially. And to be frank, this is a movie I almost zoned out of and like just kind of toned out because I was just mostly just so bored with it the entire time. But essentially, it's your kind of stereotypical invisible demon that you never actually see possesses a character. This character is now going to start murdering people, and there you go. And of course, it's possessing all of the friends of the characters it follows because convenience to the plot. And that's pretty much how it works. And it, of course, only revolves around kids in a high school. So it's just very much that premise. So even like what they're fighting, that concept isn't really that good. But this is the one thing I'm going to spoil the ending for. And it's just, this is the problem that it made me go from, okay, this is just a teen horror thing to this is actually something I really have a problem with, is that there's a character that the witch demon thing needs to kill, and this character is not possessed, and the teenagers have done all they can to stop these possessed teenagers from killing this girl, who is the girlfriend of the main character. And their idea is, instead of, trying to find a way to stop this witch, let's have this girl eat pills and essentially commit suicide, and then they will just pump her stomach and bring her back to life. And if you think I'm kidding, I'm not. They literally tell the girl, I think you have to kill yourself, and she immediately goes, okay.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I have so many issues with that, and I haven't seen the movie. That I'm in shock.
Yeah, and now I'm going to tell you straight up, that is not exactly how it ends. She does eat a bunch of pills, but not enough to kill her. So instead, they drown her. And then they resuscitate her back to life because, that's how it works. But I have such a huge problem with that, mostly because these are teenagers, first of all. This character seemed to have no problem to do it. And I think my biggest problem is, and like, I got to think about it this way, because it is following the main character being a woman and then her girlfriend. I like to think of it as, I'm not a parent, but if I had a daughter and she wanted to watch this movie and I saw it first, I would say absolutely not, because I don't personally want to or not just a daughter, just a son as well, just a child. Like, I don't want a high schooler that is at this point emotionally manipulative, looking at something as, oh, I can solve a problem by eating pills and then having my stomach pumped. Like, that's going to make the demons go away. Maybe I'm thinking a little bit too much into this, but just metaphorically speaking, we could look at this witch as like, what if this is like depression, and like a kid takes that as like a metaphor of, oh, if I just kill myself and just get my stomach pumped, come back to life, I'll be fine. I don't, it's a really weird premise. It's so hard to wrap your head around, but this was the solution and the ending to the movie.
I just think that is, I'm a little bit boggled right now, because I don't think that you're that far off the mark. There are people in my life who have anxiety and depression. I personally struggle with some anxiety and depression, and at no point did I ever think this is the solution. But the fact that some writer somewhere thought, this is a great ending to my movie, this is the great climax, to say, let's drown her, when that doesn't work. Let's eat some pills, and then when that doesn't work, let me try this. Let me be clear, viewers. This is not a solution. If you need help, please reach out to the right people. Reach out to anybody. Say, this is going on in my head, because no, absolutely not. And I don't like saying, I don't want to let my kid watch that. I don't have a kid, but if I did, I don't like the idea of saying that. But the idea of putting that into somebody's head, a child, adult, whoever, it really kind of, it makes me kind of mad. And I don't like that.
Yeah, it's the fact that this is just, and like to be clear, like the show isn't about, or the movie isn't about characters having anxiety, but like what I'm saying, like metaphorically, is the demographic for the show is teenagers, and if I had a teenage child, they could watch this show and like just to the point of being easily emotionally manipulated. And I remember being 14 and 15, and like feeling those feelings, being confused, and especially kids, nowadays. There's so many other factors that are problems with like social media and bullying. So I just didn't like the fact that that was their solution to this. That being said, will I watch the next two movies? I I don't know. I did not enjoy the first one. After the ending of this one, it almost makes me want to watch these next two, not because I'm like interested to see if they go that far again, but because I don't I just want to be I don't really know. It's just part of me like is interested in watching these movies just because like I almost just need to know if like what else are they going to do. But I also don't like it. I don't have a problem. It's this weird emotion that I feel like because I watched this first one and because I'm talking about it now, I do need to watch the next two and see if I hopefully make better plot decisions. Being the fact that this is a targeted demographic and this series is based off books, a lot like Goosebumps. It was like a rival series to Goosebumps, which I don't remember Goosebumps having an ending like that.
No, that's because the I hate to say this, but if that is the ending to any of those books, that author is lazy. That is lazy writing. You couldn't find a better way to climax your story. And there was an editor out there who said, this is going out to teenagers. This is a great idea because there are kids on social media who are telling teenagers to kill themselves. There are just so much pressure, and it doesn't matter that this isn't about, this issue of suicide. It doesn't it doesn't matter. So I would say that there should probably be a trigger warning prior to this, because if you have a child or if you are personally dealing with these struggles and you see somebody doing this and then being brought back to life, that just seems like a bad idea all around. And I don't think it's crazy that you feel like you need to watch the next two almost as a confirmation or hopefully a redemption for this, because just seems like a massive oversight.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think the premise is fine. I'm totally okay with a 80s themed horror movie slasher kind of thing. It's been a while since we've had a good one, but this is not it. And just the premise, the acting, and just the overall vibe wasn't good to begin with. And then the plot ending was just, I think we've said it enough. I couldn't disagree more with the direction it took. But there are two more movies, and I will say this: all the characters do survive. So no one, well, plenty of characters die, but the characters involved in the scene and the action, they do survive. But whether or not they're going to be in the sequels, we'll wait and see as they go back in time. But moving on from that, Kayla, you recently watched a documentary called "This Is Pop." Why don't you completely switch turns or do a 180 here? Why don't you break down
Yeah.
"This Is Pop" a little bit?
Yeah, so another hard 180 on genre. I love docuseries, and whenever I have the opportunity, listeners, and I watch a good one, I will try to talk about it. I really enjoyed This Is Pop, start to finish, every single episode. It provided, as a music lover, very, very interesting insight on how pop hits became pop hits and why we listen to what we listen to. So the first episode is Boys to Men, who I found out were really the precursor for all of the boy bands that we got in the 90s. And NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, they just copy pasted, which has plenty of issues. And then the second episode was, oh shoot, I'm forgetting, because I really enjoyed it.
Wasn't
Auto-Tune. And it focused a lot on T-Pain, actually. So apparently it's a common misconception that T-Pain could not sing prior to the auto-tune thing coming out. He was just fascinated with the sound that hard auto-tune sound provided, which originally they played with in Cher's Do You Believe in Life After Love. Overall, just really cool, really interesting show. Lots of cool insights. Apparently, I was the last one to the party. I don't listen to a lot of hip hop or rap. To find out that Usher apparently told T-Pain that he ruined music with his auto-tune and the heavy use of auto-tune, which started like a 4-year depression for him. And then again, it completely shifts because then it goes to Sweden, and you realize, ironically enough, ABBA is the reason for a lot of the hits that we have now, because pop artists started going to Sweden. You had, again, Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, all going to Sweden to produce their music and figure out how to make good music that just makes you want to jam.
Yeah, that sounds like an excellent documentary series for those of you who are kind of music. Like, I'm a very musical person, not so much in the pop side of things. So a lot of the topics in this series, I might not find as, intriguing. I'm definitely more in the other genres. But yeah, that sounds very interesting. What streaming service is this one on?
Taking a cue from Netflix, it is on, or a cue from Fear Street, it's on Netflix as well. And I could not recommend it more highly, especially if you want an intro into really fun docuseries. Netflix has actually been a really cool spot to watch interesting docuseries. Eventually, I would love to talk about the little mini docuseries they've been doing on how some of the most popular movies that we have come to know and love have been made, and how they were produced and how they got to the screen. They did a special Christmas one. It's really surprising, actually. It's a really cool spot to go to. So if you're looking for a good docuseries, go check out This Is Pop and just kind of delve down that rabbit hole. I can't recommend it highly enough.
Sounds good. Now, we've kind of been breaking into a lot of good shows, so I think we've given a lot of good recommendations and a solid maybe stay away from this one going forward. I would say let's just kind of summarize. Let's give some special shout outs to some other things we've been watching. Maybe not really in-depth reviews or anything like that. But Kayla, is there any shows, TV series, movies you've been watching, and any streaming service that you want to say, hey, check this out, or hey, maybe stay away from this one?
I really enjoy what I love to call my trash TV. So whenever I'm looking for my trash TV, I go to Hulu. Honorable mentions for kind of reality shows. I'm really enjoying this season of America's Got Talent, actually. I'm also really enjoying, this is actually a really cool show. It's on Fox, but it's a baking show called, Culinary Kitchen. It's a mystery show. They have to go in, they have to figure out what was baked in the kitchen and then try to replicate it. So it's a really interesting blend of, can you bake really good food but also figure out what was made. I'm gonna have to find out what Culinary Mysteries, Kitchen Mystery. I'm looking it up. I'm gonna have to look it up right now. What do you have on the docket?
Well, I've been watching quite a lot. But off the top of my head, on HBO Max, this show actually came out quite a while ago, but my girlfriend and I watched it in its entirety for the first time. And fun fact, Robert Downey Jr. was also involved in this show, and he was actually originally supposed to play the lead actor, but due to scheduling conflicts, most likely with one of the Marvel movies, he wasn't able to do so. But Perry Mason, which is a modern rendition of an old TV series starring Raymond Burr, who, and of course, because I can't go an episode without talking about Godzilla, starred in the American rendition of the original Godzilla movie from 1956. So I recognize that name, and my girlfriend and I checked out this show, and it's a murder mystery series that takes place in the 1930s. super interesting, great characters, great acting, a lot of good drama, and some the most intense scenes I've seen from some TV shows. And of course, it's got that noir music because it's the 30s, and you got to have that saxophone and piano with a little bit of synthesized bass as well with it. So, huge fan of that series, and definitely shout out for those of you who haven't watched that yet. And the anime world, I checked out the latest in the Gundam universe, which is Mobile Suit Gundam Hathaway. It's one of the one of 3 movies that are being released. I don't think the second or the third one have been released yet anywhere. The first one just came out on Netflix. It's a continuation of the actual Gundam storyline. For those of you who are involved in Gundam, there's a lot. Maybe some of you have only heard of Gundam Wing. That's like a separate universe kind of thing. But as an anime, pretty decent. I don't think it's worth really having a whole episode on. Maybe when the second and the third one come out. But if you're a big fan of Gundam, this has easily some of the best mech fights of the entire franchise just because of premise. And then the last thing, and then I swear I'm done, on Amazon Prime, I don't think this movie is worth talking about because I didn't like it at all. I didn't want to give it more than a minute. But I watched The Tomorrow War, which stars Chris Pratt, who I think we all love Chris Pratt. But The Tomorrow War, if I was to sum it up, really felt like it was created by like a 15-year-old who was pretty good at math and science, who decided to make a science fiction movie about aliens and the Earth, and he had it edited by his best friend, who is also a 15-year-old who is pretty decent at math and science, and then somehow got the production and Chris Pratt and a couple other pretty big name actors to make a movie. And I'm just going to be frank here. It's not fun. It's not good. It is not even a good bad movie. It's just bad. And there's a lot of trailers for it. My recommendation is to skip it.
That is really disappointing. Again, who doesn't love a good Chris Pratt movie? My final shout out. So the show I was talking about was Crime Scene Kitchen. Really fun. If you like cooking shows. As far as shows that are actual seasons, I actually stumbled across a really fun, lighthearted anime, Konosuba. I'm really into the kind of like fantasy world side of anime. So after watching that one time I got reincarnated as a slime, which is amazing if you haven't watched it, Crunchyroll, pretty much anywhere you can find anime. But also, it follows this kind of same plot line where this guy dies and he gets reincarnated into a fantasy world, and it's just so enjoyable. It's so silly and fun and lighthearted. And then finally kind of hopping back onto the regular sort of action-y movie train. I know we talked about this movie a little bit. Last shout out, Stowaway. Awesome movie. Big surprise for me. Daniel Day Kim came out swinging with that one, and I was really surprised to see Anna Kendrick in it. I'm usually not a big space movie fan. It's not my thing, but again, I was really surprised and ended up really enjoying it. So if you have time, that's on Netflix. Definitely go check that out.
I agree with that one. I know we talked about that a little while ago. My girlfriend and I also watched Stowaway, and we absolutely loved it. That's another super slow but anxiety-filled movie, and I'm a big fan of that. Just a pretty good premise. I highly recommend it. I thought it was a good time.
Oh, definitely. We've got about 10 minutes left before we're going to close out for the episode. We just really quick want to talk about what's kind of going on in the news right now. What kind of trailers we saw drop recently. I know I got really excited, and we will get off the anime train after this. My partner read all of... Well, we won't hop off the anime train? Oh, we won't. Chainsaw Man. My boyfriend, he read all of the manga. They're making a TV show out of it. He finally got me to watch the trailer, and I was really surprised by how excited I was after I watched it. There's a really cute little chainsaw pup named Pochita. There's like all this like sort of like devil hunter thing going on. The Yakuza is involved. And one of the things I was most surprised about in the trailer was the fact that at one point they're fighting like an actual lion. But it was picked up by Mappa, who was responsible for Attack on Titan and Jujutsu Kaisen, both really big hits. And when they dropped the trailer for this, it was more hyped up and there was a better response for it than Attack on Titan, which is typically their like biggest thing when they drop that every single year. They're already saying it's going to be the top 5 as a top 5 anime of the year. And if you're into the kind of raunchy, dark, twisted, kind of funny animes, it seems like it's going to be a really cool show to check out. It will absolutely not be PG-13. If you do not like shows that are going to get dark and scary and do not watch this show. But we're hopefully getting a release date soon, and it will absolutely be available on Crunchyroll.
And the reason why I said we're not jumping off that anime train yet is because the last week we got 2 brand new trailers for animated series coming to Disney Plus, which is Marvel's What If series, which is going to be releasing on August 11th, which I think might be the next Marvel series. I'd have to double check that. But after Loki, it looks like Marvel's What If is next. And then on September 22nd, we got a trailer for Star Wars Visions, which is the completely anime Star Wars series. Both these series are just kind of one-off episodes. So Star Wars Visions are they giving full reign and power to random Japanese animation studios to just make these episodes of Star Wars anime, which everyone has wanted. That sounds awesome. And then the Marvel's What If is another animated. It's not anime, but it's a 3D animated series, basically telling the premise of what happens if instead of Steve Rogers becoming Captain America, if it was, and I can't remember her character's name, Agent Carter, if she became Captain, if she got the injection instead, and it looks like she would become like Captain Britain, kind of a scenario. So it's kind of a what if thing. None of it's canon, and both of those are going to be coming out soon. And then the last trailer that we have that I know that Kayla, you have been begging me to watch for 2 weeks, and I just watched it for the first time before this show, and I am so hyped because it stars one of the actors from one of the greatest comedies I've ever seen, Kim's Convenience, but Marvel's Shang-Chi, which is being released on September 3rd. I do believe that's the next Marvel movie now that Black Widow's out. Kayla, I'm going to give the floor to you. Give me your hype for Shang-Chi.
Oh, if I had a place to start there. Okay, sorry. So, Shang-Chi, first of all, really excited for our first Asian-led Marvel movie. Representation matters, but a good movie matters more than that. And it does not look like this is going to just be a, hey, we need to get this out of the way. Lion fighting. There is a specific point back to Doctor Strange. If you got to the end, we get a fight, a cage fight between Abomination and Wong from Doctor Strange, pulling his hands out and creating that shield. Awkwafina's in it. The actress from another great movie, Crazy Rich Asians, who plays Nick's mother in Crazy Rich Asians, I can't remember her name, but she always really impresses. I am just over the freaking moon for this. I am so excited. I have not been this excited for a Marvel movie probably since Endgame. And if we're talking about a specifically representation mattered Marvel movie, this looks like this is going to step up to the plate the same way that Black Panther did. But I don't know what your thoughts are, Dominic.
Oh, my thoughts are through the roof. I'm a huge fan of Eastern culture. I was kind of born and raised on a lot of things that are very Japanese. So whenever something is pretty much anything that's around the Eastern culture, whether it's Japanese, Chinese, I usually just immediately gravitate to it. So seeing like just this premise and of course this kind of the style into the Marvel universe. I'm super excited, and not to mention I know nothing about Shang-Chi, and seeing the characters that we're familiar with in the trailer, and again the main actor being somebody that I'm very familiar with from a really good comedy show. I'm super excited for this show, and I couldn't be more hyped. But why don't we wrap up and let's start talking about some other things that are out this week, and let's just get out some shows and some release dates. So other things that have come out that we haven't talked about, or things that are going to be coming out by the time the next episode runs. We do have I Think You Should Leave Season 2, which is like kind of a skit comedy show. Every episode's like 15 minutes long. You can literally watch the entire season in 2 hours. That came out on July 6th on Netflix. Resident Evil Infinite Darkness, which is another about 2 hours animated series, CG. That came out on July 8th on Netflix. I checked that out. Really cool if you're a Resident Evil fan. As stated earlier, we have Fear Street Part 2, 1978. That came out on July 9th. Fear Street Part 3, 1666. That's coming out on July 16th, both on Netflix. Another big movie that Kayla and I are probably definitely going to check out for next episode, Space Jam: A New Legacy. It's going to be out July 16th. That'll be on HBO Max. And in theaters, if you guys are interested, you have Snake Eyes, which is a G.I. Joe spin-off movie, which is coming out July 23rd. As far as new dates, we got new dates, and I cannot wait for this. Recently announced, which is The Witcher Season 2. Finally got a release date, which is going to be December 17th. So it's going to be one of the later series. Probably going to be one of the last series on Netflix we'll talk about this year. And then we also, as a bonus, got a Witcher Nightmare of the Wolf, which is an anime spinoff. It doesn't look like it's starring any of the characters, at least from what I saw in the trailer. So it looks like it's going to be complete bonus characters, and that's coming out August 23rd. And then Kayla, I'll let you have this one.
I am so excited about this, guys. This got dropped 2 days ago. There is going to be a special being released by NBC in which the Jonas Brothers train for the Olympics with actual Olympians. So we are going to get cameos from Laurie Hernandez, Nastia Lukin, Sonia Richards-Ross, and Sydney McLaughlin. And the three of them are just going to try to train to become Olympic athletes. I am just really excited for this as a person who loves the Jonas Brothers because I know their personalities. And also, I'm just really excited for the Olympics. I'm going to be honest. I think it's going to be really cool to watch this coming in post-pandemic. So that comes out July 23rd, and they're going to be training in gymnastics, track and field, and BMX racing, in which Nick actually ends up breaking a rib. So they're all going to be kind of competing with each other to figure out kind of who's the best athlete. And I'm really excited, even though it's going to be kind of silly.
We have so much to watch for the rest of the year. I'm really excited. But this has been the N.E.R.D Film and TV Podcast. Once again, I've been your host, Dominic, alongside Kayla. If you guys like what you listen to, please like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. Both are N.E.R.D Podcasts. And of course, leave a rating on whatever podcast service you listen to, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple Podcasts, maybe Amazon. Leave us a review. Leave us them 5 stars. That's really going to help out. To actually comment, we have seen some reviews and we have seen some kind of critiques for our shows. We do understand that there is some desired audio quality and everything like that. We do just want to remind everyone that, like Kayla and I, we're definitely doing this, for fun, and we're doing this on our own budget. We're obviously not professionals, and we do have full-time jobs, but we're well aware, and we absolutely want to improve our segments, our audio quality, and everything like that. And that will happen. We will purchase better microphones as we start, setting aside some money to be able to afford all that kind of thing. So we do appreciate the feedback. We do listen to you, and we do agree. So please keep that coming with your suggestions, movies and TV shows you want us to check out, or just anything else you want to tell us. Tell us what your favorite color is. Other than that, thank you for listening, and nerd out.